So let's begin to watch the fourth game of the book, which is game 1, a check Benoni with free e5, Victor Moskalenko against Jorge González Rodriguez in Barcelona, un rapid game played in 2006. So Moskalenko says a very interesting thing because it's important also for us. He started this OTB rapid game. For the fourth time he used the Trompowsky. He used the Trompowsky because he wanted to avoid this, that is called check Benoni. That was his opponent main weapon as black. So what does this mean? It means that Moskalenko prepared for his opponent. 2 days ago I tried to do the same thing for a tournament that was 1 month away, and it was practically impossible. Why? Because the tournament has like 30 people in it, and the amount of games that they had in the database, because most of these players were veterans from master level player to grandmaster, in total was like 10,000 games. So it's kind of difficult to know what they will use for a certain tournament because I believe today it's kind of universal, the repertoire. Yes, I have about 3 or 4 different openings as white and the same also for black. So how do you know what I will use? Kind of difficult, right? In any case. So after bishop g5, black played c5. That is a way to unbalance the game, okay? And Moskalenko push. This advance is kind of important because it starts to be deep in enemy territory and can create some troubles. Okay, now, as we can see, black wants to play that check Benoni, and so it tries to give white a way to transpose. Okay, the transposition would be if white plays this, knight c3, d6, e4, bishop e7, and we have this check Benoni. With that said, what do you think Moskalenko played at this point? Because you see, this is the problem with the pawns. Once you move them, they cannot return back. And once you move them, you create some weak squares. That's one of the fourth thing, okay? One creates a weak square. And here Moskalenko plays d6. Boom. He says that it's a very good move. In the book, he says an amazing resource with the intention to block black's development. Obviously, you didn't need really a grandmaster to tell you that, because once he plays d6, how do you develop the bishop on f8? Clearly, you have to play something totally different, like g6 and bishop g7, or you have to try to attack that pawn with queen b6. But then it starts to become a kind of heavy, I think, right? Well, let's see what else he says. This was an intuitive decision over the board. That's kind of interesting. So he's admitting that by move 4, he wasn't preparing the opening. That's kind of bad. I remember Jem Feingold that was laughing at one of his wives because practically after 2 moves in the Sicilian, she didn't have anything else, while he prepared like 2 lines for each of the Sicilian he played, which also shows a certain professionalism, which is important, right? Because when you play a tournament and you want to win, you need to be a professional. So in this, here Moskalenko says this is the usual move, but after d6, e4 and bishop e7, he says the placement of a bishop g5 might be not so useful. Yeah. It makes sense. Okay. So generally, with chess base, one can check if other people have played this game. At the moment, I'm not really interested. I just want to try to read through the game and study it, and eventually, if I have time, I will check that. But the interesting part is this. Black plays this queen a5, and Moskalenko says that black gets confused immediately, which is fairly typical in these dynamic Trompowsky positions. Now, the thing is, black is an international master. Obviously, he's surely a professional too. How is possible that he wasn't prepared? That's the part which doesn't make understand. And why black didn't choose queen b6? It makes sense, right? You immediately do two things with queen b6. You attack the pawn d6, right? And you attack on b2. So it seems queen b6 is a little more active, no? But let's see what Moskalenko shows as a line, no? Because at this point, I'm sorry, he says that he wasn't prepared and he played d6 at the board. But then he shows us this line and says this is good, this is a good move, bishop takes f6, because he says preparing an attack along the light squares. G takes b6, f6. Obviously, he also analyzes this possibility. But notice, this is move 5, it goes up to move 10. I think on the over the board, he must have analyzed this possibility by himself. So what does he do? E3, bishop takes d6. Now, the advantage of this situation is the following, that practically everything is kind of blocked. So I think this is the advantage of giving away that pawn d6 and giving away the pawn b2. And now white is already more active because here he practically shows this line, but it doesn't show what happens if black gets even more greedy and takes on a2. I will try to show it. Okay, and here Moskalenko leaves a sign that generally is explained at the end of the book. They generally explain the signs using in the informant or in the beginning of the book. In this case, the sign that he gave is an evaluation of the position that says that white has the initiative. Now, let's go back, because we said he plays this, tac, 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 boom. What happens if, and this is the problem with chess books, they never put a move that you want to know. So in any case, you are obliged to go with a computer because obviously we are not grandmaster player, but also if we were grandmaster player, honestly, the problem would be that sometimes you don't see the right continuation for 4 or 5 moves. And so which one is the right continuation here? Well, it's the bishop c4 or knight c4. For the computer, it seems knight c4, which is interesting because the problem is not only that it cuts away this queen from escaping, because now the queen cannot go on b2 anymore. Okay, b2 is practically controlled by this knight, and this knight is also attacking d6. So once he moves d6, white will attack the queen in this way, and the queen cannot escape, right? So this is the point for which Moskalenko didn't continue with this line. However, after rook b1, the tactical trainer in chess base says that the position is equal. So queen a3, knight e2. Is black still moving this? Or should he move something else? No. It seems he cannot move anything else. So there is a threat to the queen to be trapped. And let's see if also, well, this is the interesting stuff. The tactical assistant says the position is equal or black is slightly better. Obviously, humans are not computers, and obviously we cannot see 20 moves ahead. And so maybe that's the reason for this kind of evaluation. So let's return back a little. So we said queen b6, bishop f6, g takes f6, knight c3. Also here, Moskalenko said white has the initiative. Queen takes b2, knight d5, bishop takes d6, and knight f3. Again, white has the initiative. I noticed that the video is becoming kind of long. We are already 11 minutes, but at least I have seen all the lines at the moment. Not really all, because after knight c3, Moskalenko put 2 lines. One, bishop takes d6, e3, but there is also the interesting e4, that is a possibility. Bishop e7, knight g, e2, with initiative for white. Or what happens if black takes with a queen, exchange of the queens, knight b5, king e7, boom. And here it doesn't even put an evaluation because clearly white is winning. There is no other move that he can do. This black has lost the bishop. With that said, now let's return back to queen a5 that Moskalenko said wasn't the best move. In fact, in the book, it gives a dubious sign. Okay. Knight c3, knight e4, bishop d2. This move is given an exclamation point, which means it's a good move. And why it's a good move? Because often we never return back in the opening. We always try to put our pieces forward, and we don't think of these moves of returning back. But this is, he says, after an ultra short opening duel, white has a decisive advantage already. Although he still needs to develop the rest of his pieces before he can go over to the attack. Okay. So now black takes the bishop. In generally, beginners also would have avoided this move because they say, oh no, I have lost the bishop pair. Well, sometimes it's not important to have a bishop pair. It depends on the opening. And notice here, like in the beginning I said, once the pawn is on d6, you have to find another way to develop your bishop. And this is the way black fought, probably. That's the reason probably why he played queen a5. He didn't go for the greedy queen b6. That's probably the reason. Now, Moskalenko continued with e3, but in the book he also noticed this move, okay? Because this is quite interesting. This is a typical computer move, okay? Because the computer lately, they always attack immediately. And the move g6 gives the chance to attack with the pawn h4. Okay, but Moskalenko continue with e3. With that said, let's continue. Knight c6, bishop c4. And this is another thing that is important. When I study opening, I want to know on which squares the pieces will go. It is clear that since white has pushed this pawn here, this diagonal, it's open, and so we want to place this bishop there, right? Because that's where the bishop belongs. Okay, now bishop c4, bishop g7, knight f3, castle, h4, boom, a natural advance. Here, Moskalenko in the book says, look, that there was also this move, knight g5, which was a possibility, and it was as good as h4. And I have no reason to talk about that any further, because, yeah. However, in my opinion, h4, it's a great move. It's the move we want to play because we want to attack that castle. b5. So while white is developing and attacking on the king side, black is developing and attacking on the queen side. Where to put now the bishop? Obviously, the bishop doesn't return back. It continues to keep pressure. And it goes on this square that he wouldn't have been able to go if there was a knight on f6, because he would have been eliminated probably right away. Okay, development, h5, boom, b4. And now white needs to decide where he wants to put the knight c3. So one could stop and think, do I go on e2 or do I go on e4? e4, then you must consider what happens if black plays f5, because obviously f5 is a possibility, right? But he cannot play f5 because we have a bishop on d5. So this is the problem that already black is facing. This pawn is pinned by this, and since it's pinned, it cannot go on the useful f5, because that would have given some troubles to white. But as we can see, all started from the decision in the beginning to go on a5 with the queen and then castle on the king side, which made maybe the things a little easier for white. So knight e4, queen b6, takes again. Notice that this pawn is not defended because this pawn is pinned, okay? So that's a problem that people forget sometimes. Knight fg5, c4. I honestly find scary the fact that black thinks that his attack on the queen side is faster than white. But it doesn't make any sense to me, because to me white, I don't have, I'm not using an engine. For me, white has practically nearly win. It just needs a little to find the right attack, and that's over, in my opinion. In fact, now I have turned the page of a book, and the next move is knight takes f7. Boom, the game is over, like I thought. Obviously, like a good grandmaster or title player, black doesn't immediately reply to that, but let's see, he replied to with rook takes f7, bishop takes, king takes, boom. And this exchange have made space for the queen to enter into the game. And now it's really a mess. Now it's a mess. How does he survive this? That's the part I don't understand. Knight g5 with the threat of giving checkmate here. Knight d8 blocking the threat. Knight h7, check, king e8, queen g8, bishop f8, and the queen takes f8 with a checkmate. So c3, knight h6. Obviously, quite disregard the threat to his queen, obviously in Grandmaster style. King h7. Now, let's remember that black couldn't take on h6 because when the king was on g8, it was attacked by the bishop and by the knight. So it was not a check, but a double check. Let's see again to show. Knight h6 is a double check, okay? So king h7 and knight f5, the game ended here. But obviously there is a checkmate. I will only let you visualize the checkmate and not show the moves on the board because I believe a minimum visualization is needed. Now black needs to play bishop h6 and the next move is rook takes h6 with checkmate. And this ends this video and the fourth game shown by Moskalenko in his beautiful book.